I guess I need to get out of the way. I'm Staci Williams. I work for American Rivers as part of our Blue Trails program. So I'm going to just talk a little bit today about our Blue Trails program and how it's kind of evolved, and then also talk a little bit about a couple of unique projects that we're working on to promote our Blue Trails and promote rivers around the country. Now, I too have a video, but I'm assuming that you're not going to be able to hear it, but let's see. And if not, can you hear it at all? No?
Like a music box.
That's all that this is showing right now.
I can hear it.
Okay. Well, if you'd like to see the video, it just kind of outlines our Blue Trails work, and I think it's pretty cool. But you can go to the American Rivers website and check it out if you'd like. Okay. Our first Blue Trails project was the Congaree River Blue Trail, which is near Columbia, South Carolina, and it connects urban Columbia to Congaree National Park. And when we first started our Blue Trails program, we were really just focused on connecting communities to their hometown rivers, connecting people to rivers, and hopefully inspiring them to want to protect it. So that's kind of where we started with the program. And as we've added new Blue Trails, the program's kind of evolved. Our second Blue Trail was the Wateree River Blue Trail, which is also in South Carolina in Kershaw County, a more rural area. And it's the first one where we really started working towards incorporating protection into the program. And as a result of this overwhelming success of our first, the inaugural paddle for the Wateree River Blue Trail, the local folks in Kershaw County thought, hey, we've got something really great here, we need to protect it, and they passed a 100-foot buffer ordinance, which in South Carolina is a really big deal. So on all their rivers in Kershaw County. And that was, I guess, 2009. And then our third project is again in South Carolina, this time coastal South Carolina on the Waccamaw River, which is the project that I've been heading up. So I'm just going to talk a little bit, in a little bit more detail about the Waccamaw project, because it has kind of been the next phase in the evolution, and we've really focused on protection of riverside land. And one of with this project, we also partnered with a local land trust to target conservation easements and really work with landowners to talk about conservation and use the trail as a tool. And then we also partnered with our local river keeper. One of the first things we did to start this project out is we looked at what were the protection opportunities, what needed to be protected, and we noticed that we've got some great DNR protected land up at the top. I know this is hard for you to see, but there's DNR protection. A couple of the green is private protection, and then down the red is wildlife refuge. And there's this huge section that's not protected, and if you notice, it's near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and which is completely developed, and the next land that's being targeted is right along the river. So we identified this priority protection area, and that's where we've really started to focus. And as part of that, we convened this group of stakeholders, all of our local land protection stakeholders, and we meet quarterly, and we talk, and we really focus our protection on that pre-identified area. And one of the things that I think was unique is that we also included some city and county staff in that planning. And as a result, the county, it's called Wateree County, they also included in their open space plan our priority protection area as part of their priority for their open space plan. And then one of the things that we're working on now is looking at expanding the Waccamaw National Wildlife Refuge to include that protection area along the Waccamaw River. And one of the reasons for this is because of all the great press and publicity and chatter that the Blue Trail's gotten. And what we're looking to do is really connect Coastal Carolina University, the city of Conway, and the Waccamaw National Wildlife Refuge, and really center that all around the river and then protection of this corridor. One of our first projects that we worked on was a project near Conway, South Carolina, which I just mentioned. And it was a protection project with Wateree County, the Nature Conservancy, and all of those task force partners. And we're working to acquire, some of this land has already been acquired, but then acquire these tracts of riverfront land, and then hopefully eventually it will be handed over to the wildlife refuge. And the city of Conway is super excited about that, and they want the wildlife refuge there, and they see the benefits. So that's one of the projects that we're working on. And then another part of the project was working on improving codes and ordinances along the river corridor. And we've had some successes and we've had some setbacks. So one of our successes is we were successful in passing an improved tree ordinance for Georgetown County, South Carolina, and it prohibited cutting down trees, riverfront trees. It also prohibited clear cutting for timber harvesting and then redeveloping into subdivisions for 6 years. So that was one of the things that we thought was a pretty big deal. One of the things that we were not successful at, we've been trying to get a conservation subdivision ordinance passed for Wateree County, which would have limited development in the wetlands and then offered some density bonuses and those types of things in the upland area, and would have protected 40% of the remaining open space. That did not pass. So we're kind of going back and revamping our idea, and that would have been county-wide. But what we did learn as a result of that is that though they didn't support that ordinance for county-wide, they did support protection of the Waccamaw corridor because of all of the talk and chatter that it had been getting. So we're going back and relooking at a floodplain protection ordinance or a Waccamaw overlay district. So that was one good thing that came out of it. And then we're also working with the county planning staff to revise their hazard mitigation plans. And I don't know if any of you have experience in that, but one of the things we're trying to do is when there is a flooding event, rather than paying to redevelop these areas within the floodplain, they will only pay to buy out those tracts of land. So it's not a short-term goal, but a long-term protection goal that we think could be really huge. And then the other part of what we've been doing on the Waccamaw is a lot of community outreach. We sent out letters introducing the community to the Blue Trail Project and our land trust partners and talking about the conservation options. And then we also just recently sent out a letter with the county to all the landowners within the floodplain. They send out a letter talking about elevating structures and all of those kind of man-made things. But we also included information about NRCS programs and other conservation options. And then we've also hosted workshops and, of course, paddles. And then our next project was Hitchcock Creek. And Hitchcock Creek is near Rockingham, North Carolina. And it centered around the city of Rockingham was really excited about, one, this dam removal, and then including a blue trail as part of that. And they're also working to protect land along Hitchcock Creek and really see a lot of the economic benefits and are really excited about those economic benefits for the community. So our next project then is the Verde River in southwest Arizona, and we're working with the city of Clarksdale and the mayor of the city of Clarksdale, Doug, who is really excited about this project and the opportunities for the city. Accompanying that, the conservation values are they're working on a flow study. So we're really looking at a bunch of different conservation options, so using kind of the whole variety of conservation mechanisms, depending on your river. Then I'm just going to touch on this briefly because I think Karita's going to talk a little bit more about this, right? In 2010, we went around the country talking about rivers and how important they were to the kind of yet undefined America's Great Outdoors, probably with several of you in this room. And as a result of all of our hard work, your hard work, rivers have been a huge focus of America's Great Outdoors. And then I just included these, and I'm not going to talk a ton, but I just wanted to mention that the National Water Trails Initiative, their website is now up and running, correct, Karita?
Right, yeah, we Karita Water, the National Parks and Rivers Conservation Assistance Program, and then also worked with the Wild Scenic Rivers Program in our Park Service. And we've had, based on the great input that we got from a lot of the community members through a series of listening sessions that our secretary did, the Department of Interior Secretary did, and sort of essentially all of the government, we're trying to figure out how we can make better connections and allow better access to our waterways so that people had a connection to their own rivers. And our secretary is particularly interested in rivers, getting people down to them, smelling them, paying attention. Yes, smelling them if they smell bad, doing something about it. So we've been working at the interagency level and with a lot of our national partners to figure out, well, what kind of benefits could we bring from the national level? And one of the things that came up was this National Water Trails Initiative. And we essentially have started the creation of a system that, for our program, we've been working for the last 2 decades on water trails, trying to get people down to the water, get better access to the water. And we've talked to each other a lot, but haven't really been able to expand the network and get the network talking to itself. And a big goal of this initiative is to be able to have a connected, interactive network where people can share tools, share best management practices. And I'll pass these around. This has a link to the website and a QR code for it. And then this is a brochure that we just put out. The website just went up 2 weeks ago. It outlines, I think, one of the things that you'll find most beneficial, and we'd love feedback on, because this is new. We're sort of doing a rolling launch of it, and we'd love feedback, is that we have best management practices. So we had a team of water trail specialists sit down and talk about, well, what are the things that we think are integral to having a good water trail that looks at both recreation access and conservation. And we're starting to compile some of those best management practices, put them up in a toolbox on the website so that you can find, some of the economic studies that we talked about earlier, so that you can find some access and design. A lot of state level programs, there are about 12 to 15 really great statewide programs that are already doing access and design. So how do we use the lessons that are already out there? So.
Does the National Water Trail System have a place for urban waterways that are impaired, combined sewer overflows, concrete channels?
Yeah, this was a huge part of the discussion. We didn't want to, so the National Water Trail System takes an authority from the National Recreation Trail System, which folks might be familiar with. And the big goal of that legislation was actually to have urban connections. So we made the language of our best management practices such that we're not talking about actual levels of, if your river is pristine. But what we do want for our kind of the best rivers is that you're talking about planning for change. So it's not that, Chattahoochee is one example. I mean, they have flow information on their website, and there's some days when either because of rec flow levels or because of some contaminants in the river, they have warnings but we think that water trails are a way that people learn about those things and ask questions. So how do you provide safety information so people know when it's good to go out, or how to behave, washing your hands and things like that. So we didn't want to exclude those rivers. They're actually a really big piece of what we want to be able to have people in their urban areas turn back to the river and get into the river.
So you don't even have to have a public access, because we just use any old bridge and figure public right of way right at the bridge.
No, our system is looking at existing public access and a sustained, we have some access guidelines, and so we're looking at not just, so there's kind of two levels of access. One is that you can get into the river anywhere. We worked with American Water. People know how to get into the rivers when they're kind of a higher level of user. But we're really here reaching at the first level, at first level users. So how can you, as a water trail, give them kind of the bigger picture of how they can use the river? So it's sort of the understanding of the natural resources on the river, a little bit of the history of the river, the safety issues, and so that you can have access, sort of an easy level of access. So we're not, with the start of the system, we're looking at where can people easily get in and out of the river. There aren't specific standards because it really varies, by water body, but making sure that there are multiple access points that people can understand them and the links of access points.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. So the website is on the card, but it's nps.gov/watertrails. And right now, what we have up there mostly is this kind of interact. There's an application that's on there, and we're, on one hand, because the Secretary wants it, trying to designate rivers. But our goal, having worked on water trails for the last 20 years, is to really be able to provide some best management practices so people who maybe aren't at the designation level can either have access to funds and resources to get them there, to have examples of good, what we call sustainable access, so that we're building a network that really is going to be sustainable into the future. So.
In coastal ecosystems, you all have what do you do as far as trail marking? If we are, like in a river, it's pretty easy to figure out how to get from point A to point B, follow the water. Sometimes. But in a big river or in a coastal ecosystem, you've got salt marsh with 100 different creeks. Are y'all putting structure up, signposts, or using GPS? What's the best way to do that?
I could show you a couple of different examples, because there are quite a few examples of coastal trails, some of which are like the Main Island Trail, which is up in Maine. They provide information not so much online, but in their own maps and guides, so people can find it. That's partly land ownership. There's some, like in Lake Michigan, some places in the Chesapeake they've used Blueways, and they do some markers on that. In Lake Michigan, they've been doing GPS along the lower half of the river, and so they do a printed guide that shows you both public access points and then egress routes if there are issues with the water and things like that. And then they'll use GPS. I know in Lake Tahoe, similarly, they kind of have a certain navigational trail. So there are quite a few examples out there. Florida has a whole system that we can point to.
Okay, great. We felt limited to using like channel markers and setting things out there. It really can't
I'm going to pass around. I brought a couple examples of maps that we've created too. If you guys want to, I just brought one example. I don't know if you want to look through those.
Where can we get copies of those?
I can get you copies. I didn't bring a ton of copies. I have a couple copies of the Waccamaw, but we can get you copies. But I can get you copies. Okay, and then still talking about AGO, another part of the AGO initiative is now this new Rivers initiative that I believe Rebecca Water is going to talk about more tomorrow during the luncheon. And just from my understanding, feel free to add anything, Karita, is that there's part of this is going to be a Blueways initiative, which is not only focused on the recreation and the access along rivers, but really focused on restoration and protection along rivers. And then in having projects in all 50 states. And then also as part of that, this river atlas, which I'm not sure what that's going to entail. I don't know if it's been kind of announced yet, or do you have any more to add on kind of what
It hasn't been technically announced, but we just last week were kind of meeting again about the Secretary of Interior and some of the other agency heads were like, well, I can get a map of the transportation system, but I can't get a map of the rivers. We said, well, you can, but they want to know, all of those GIS layers that go over the top of it. And so right now, we're trying to pull together with USGS and some of the folks who do mapping to create some kind of river atlas. And the big questions that we're asking now, which we'd love feedback on, are, what are those layers? What kind of benefit could there be to a local watershed organization or a local river? So that, to me, if you're in an urban river, you don't necessarily want to have all the land ownership necessarily. It's not, at a small scale, it's not really useful, but you might want to know, what, where all the street gauge stations are or something like that. So what kind of information is important, and what might you want to showcase that's special about your river? Or I guess two questions that I'm asking.
And just as an aside, I didn't mention it earlier, but one of the things we've really been working hard at as part of our work on the Waccamaw is securing land and water conservation monies for the refuge. And this photo was actually taken at a celebration with the refuge. We hosted a paddle with a youth organization, and the youth organization is primarily underserved youth, and none of them had ever been, they were anywhere from 14 to 16 and maybe a little younger, but none of them had ever been on a river. And the river is literally a couple minutes from where they live. So along the trip, they talked about how much fun they were having, but then also why it was so important to protect the river. And then it was all in collaboration with the Waccamaw National Wildlife Refuge, and we were really talking up LWCF and why it was important to secure these funds, and why that was an important funding source, and how it was connecting these urban areas to really cool nature. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is, like I said, is a couple of kind of unique ways we're trying to promote rivers and connect people to them. And one of them is we're creating this Waccamaw Blue Card. And what it is we're partnering with a local chamber of commerce to create this kind of the Blue Card, and we're calling it, which essentially is we're working with local businesses along the river to offer discounts to folks who sign up for this Blue Card. And then the chamber is in turn promoting the Blue Trail and promoting these businesses on different tourism websites, travel magazines, on a variety of different sources. And so they're talking up the river and the trail, and then also these local businesses. So folks can, if they go to an outdoor magazine, they'll go and there'll be the QR code that will take them to the chamber website where they can sign up for the Blue Card, learn more about the river, learn more about American rivers, and then visit these local businesses. And what we've heard so far from the businesses is that it's been a really unique way for them to promote their business, one that they haven't, an audience that they haven't reached out to in the past. And part of what we're doing is then also creating a video with the chamber of different sections of the trail. So really targeting that ecotourism. And our ultimate goal is to say the river isn't an economic asset if it's not clean and if it's not healthy and if it's not protected. So this is something new that we're just getting ready to launch, but something that we're really excited about and really talking about the economic potential of not only the Waccamaw, but other clean and healthy rivers. The next thing I'm going to talk for just a couple minutes about is a really cool partnership with the National Park Service and National Geographic to create these geo-stories. And what they are is we've got a grant through the National Park Service to use this really cool National Geographic platform to highlight rivers and trails around the country, river trails around the country. And just as an aside, I believe there's going to be a link on the National Water Trails website to these geo stories. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through what they look like, and then talk a little bit more about kind of where we're going to go from here for it. So this is just, if you were to go to the page, there would be a bunch of different stories along the side, and then also a map where you can kind of showing where they are, and you can click on them. I'm of course going to talk about the Waccamaw. Again, if you look to the side there, it has a map of where the river's located, and it's a coastal river in both North and South Carolina. Starts up at Lake Waccamaw, which is a Carolina bay, and then on the side there's also there can be photos, videos, different sound bites. We have some sound bites from that Service Over Self, that youth paddle. We have some videos that they took to talking about the river. I didn't create this, so I did not put this picture of myself up there. And then one of the things is just, obviously, that you can see at the bottom there is that they're talking about the trail and kind of what makes the trail unique, the conservation values, those types of things. And this is actually a video that was shot with a reporter. And again, these are just showing some of the cypress trees that can be found and talking about whatever makes your hometown river unique and cool. And if you look on the side, it also will show, like if there was an area that was specifically cypress trees. Obviously, these are found all along the river, but it'll show that on the map on the side. So like if there were a historical landmark or something, it would then show kind of where that was located. And again, just another shot of the river. One of the things that I also think is cool is that you can, that it shows different types. You can use different map types.
And I'll add, we've been working on these, hoping to use them as a model that other rivers could then kind of plug in their information and create geostories. If things go well in the future, you might talk about
No, that's exactly right. I'll just go ahead and say, we're launching these first 15 geostories on National Trails Day on June 2nd. But what we hope is that it doesn't end there. What we want is for different people working on rivers around the country will then upload their stories to this platform. So we'll get a whole network of these really cool river stories and highlighting these really cool paddle trails all around the country. And I think one of the really neat things about it is that it reaches such a huge audience with a National Geographic audience. So I think it could be really cool.
One of our goals with it, at the end of each story, we're going to, American Rivers on their page is going to have links to ways people can, get involved in conservation or get involved by just going out and recreating. So this will hopefully, give you that virtual view down the river and inspire you to maybe get out there on your own or go see one of the cool sites or contact someone. So that's, at least from the Park Service perspective, our hope for them.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
It's the website.
It's not up yet. No, it's not up yet. It'll be launched June 2nd. So we'll be doing a lot of promotion. So you can check back on the American Rivers website, and we'll have it then. Yeah, and then one of the other things that we're hoping we're highlighting is the protection values. And so highlighting the National Wildlife Refuge, it would be an example for the Waccamaw, because of course we want to talk about the river and all the great things you can find when you go out and paddle it, but then also talking, like Rita mentioned, about the protection and how to keep it, whatever those protection may be. And one of the things obviously that we're working with on the Waccamaw is working with the National Wildlife Refuge. And then, as Karita mentioned, at the end, we'll have a section where you can where it'll show additional resources. So let's say your paddle trail has another map on your website. You can link to that, or if there's something talking about the water quality, or if you want to volunteer to be, whatever it may be, then you can follow one of the links. And then there'll also be a link to our Blue Trails Guide, the American Rivers Blue Trails Guide, to learn more if you're looking to create a trail on your local river. and then also just a link to some of the other geo stories. And then, like we just mentioned, I was just going to say again that our hope is that this will evolve and stories will continue to be added, as throughout, just continuing indefinitely until. So that's something that if you're working on a trail, that we'd love to have as many as possible. Any questions for me? Thank you.
I think last summer in James River, they hosted a group of students going down James River for 340 miles, and they posted their stories on that story, but it wasn't up yet, right? How did they do that?
Yeah, they've submitted it to, I believe, to American Rivers, so it'll be part of the geo stories.
Every day they uploaded what they'd done that day. They went 10, 15 miles a day.
Yeah. I think they were one of the first to get us some of the information, right, Corinne?
Yeah, the James River has a really nice geo story
Yeah.
up there.
They're
Part of the inspiration.
something else. We hosted them when they finished.
I'm with the James River Association, so we, I guess it's on the National Geographic website somewhere, but this is going to be a new application of the geo story, or new, I guess I'm trying to figure out how that.
Oh, go ahead. Do you want to answer?
And James River was one of the inspirations we saw when you guys had put up there. And Park Service gave some dollars to help get youth out on the river, and then use these stories as a way to sort of tell and inspire that. We've been working on creating a platform that's called River Stories right now, although it covers all different kinds of waterways, so that there could be a collection within Nat Geo. So Nat Geo sort of has a larger vision of doing, a wild and scenic collection, or they do trains, they do everything, so that we can have some vision, some space where people could look at all these different ways they can get out or help protect rivers. And we'll be putting it on the Park Service website, the American Rivers website, but we'd love to have, if there are other places that make sense to share.
One of the neat things is it can be embedded in somebody else's website. So we have our geo story on our website, right? So you can embed it right there. The other thing that I think people would like to know, and I don't know if it factors into what you're working on, but working with National Geographic, they're also developing a geo poll where you can ask questions and people can answer with specific geographic positions. So where's your favorite canoeing spot, or where's a place that needs to be cleaned up, or things like that. And we can create sort of heat maps to then convey sort of public's interest in different issues and things like that. So that's going to be coming down the road as well. Yeah.
I just seeing what different platforms, different organizations have, it's really exciting because I know that people need as many resources as they can to kind of be informed about what there is out there. And I'm with the Georgia River Network, and I'm kind of in charge of the clearinghouse for our water trails in our state. And so we're kind of in that similar situation where we're trying to put up all the information there is about the established water trails. But I think trying to come up with some way of using these different platforms that are already established and kind of embedding them within our website, and having those smaller organizations that really want to promote their trails, and instead of having to pay to put together the maps and pay to put together the, all the other expensive technologies and websites and whatnot, might be nice to kind of coordinate and make it easier for some of these smaller organizations that need those tools.
If I could just build on that a little bit, another thing I see is that there's so much duplication going on, and sort of separately, we won't penetrate the public marketplace very much, but eventually we need to get to a point where it's really consistent and people know where to go, like going to Google or a particular mapping platform, so that it gets further through the marketplace and we engage more people. So I think not only having those linkages, but then having some consistency and common promotion down the road. But it'll take a while to get there, but that's one of the key things I see.
I'm working with folks in the Potomac watershed, where we're looking at doing, how Google has Street View. we're looking at doing River.
Yeah.
And so if we can get several different reviews, because basically what you do is you get a grant where they can come out with a camera, they stick it down and they do this 360 photo, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Boom, it uploads, and then you can use that as part of your mapping. It's very cheap, very easy.
I heard they did a couple.
They have done a couple, but it's you have to get that grant, you have to persuade them to come out.
Yeah.
And then if you can employ that into a mobile app, trails kind of system where you can reach the younger crowds.
Who was doing the raising there?
There's a place that's just opening up, an organization that's opened up called South Branch Consortium, and it's run by named by Jim Edgenwright. He has a lot of contacts with NASA, and he does a lot of educational programs in Arlington. And so he has this compound, so to speak, in this rural area that he's got all these engineering think tankers that are thinking of all kinds of great ideas to get folks out there to do some environmental science, but also some really neat ideas. They have an idea of a submersible ORV that's shaped like a fish that they can go up and down the rivers and videotape the scenery underneath. You know, it's just gonna be phenomenal. These guys want to do, but that's the kind of thing that I want to do, because there's so many great things out there that people can utilize. Google Maps as well. You can make all kinds of maps for free right there, and then have it boom embedded in your website.
Yeah, and we did put on the National Water Trail site, because mapping is always an issue we hear about.
Greta, do you want me to bring it up? Do you want me to bring up the website?
If you want to, or just people can go there. Either way, it's not easy. But there's a mapping app so that you can release to sort of generic place maps. And we have lots of examples of other maps that have been done, based on what your goal is. And some organizations use them to raise money. So for the Water Trails website, we didn't want to take the place of that. We wanted to point people to the organization that's actually doing the work on the ground and is the contact for the access. But we're trying to figure out how can you make a global platform so people can find things, but also make that connection locally. So we welcome